The wagon wheel broke with a sharp crack, and Clara Whitfield nearly fell beneath it. She caught the side rail with both hands, but the heavy wagon leaned toward her, dragging through the mud as the frightened horse pulled against the reins. Clara cried out and pressed one hand against her swollen belly. Her baby kicked hard. "Easy," she whispered. "Please, little one, not now." Cold rain swept across the empty road outside Red Pine, Colorado. The sun had already disappeared behind the dark hills, and Clara knew she had less than an hour before night covered the valley. She had been alone for 6 days. Her husband had been buried for less than 2 months. And now the last thing she owned was sinking into the mud. Clara pulled the horse's reins again, trying to calm the tired animal. The wagon carried 2 blankets, a small box of clothes, a sack of flour, and the few tools her husband had left behind. It was not much, but it was all she had. "Come on, Daisy," Clara begged, "just a little farther." The horse stepped forward. The broken wheel twisted. The wagon dropped again. Clara lost her footing and fell to one knee. Pain shot through her back and down her side. She held her belly and waited, terrified that another pain would follow. The doctor in Fort Grayson had warned her not to travel. But the landlord had warned her that he would throw her out if she could not pay. Clara had chosen the road. Now she wondered if she had chosen death. A sound came through the rain. Hoofbeats. Clara lifted her head. A dark wagon appeared around the bend, pulled by 2 strong chestnut horses. A tall man sat on the front seat, wearing a black coat and a wide brown hat. His face was partly hidden by a thick beard, but she could see his hard eyes even through the rain. He pulled his horses to a stop beside her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The stranger looked at the broken wheel, the sinking wagon, and then at Clara's hand resting over her stomach. "What are you doing out here alone?" he asked. His voice was low and rough. Clara pushed herself to her feet. "That is none of your concern." The man's eyes narrowed. "It becomes my concern when I find a pregnant woman trying to lift a wagon by herself." "I did not ask for help." "No," he said. "You just decided to kill yourself instead." Clara's cheeks burned. "I am not killing myself." The stranger climbed down from his wagon. He was even larger than she had first thought. Broad shoulders filled his wet coat, and his boots sank deep into the mud as he walked toward her. A faded scar crossed his right cheek. Clara stepped back. The man noticed. He stopped. "I am not going to hurt you," he said. I have heard men say that before. Something changed in his face, but only for a moment. He looked away and walked toward the broken wheel. He crouched and examined it with one hand. "The axle is cracked." "I can see that." "You cannot repair it here." "I will find a way." "Not tonight." Clara tightened her jaw. "I have no choice." The stranger stood and looked toward the black clouds gathering over the hills. "A storm is coming." "It is already raining." "This is not the storm." Thunder rolled in the distance. The horses shifted nervously. Clara looked down the road. Red Pine was still at least 8 miles away. She had hoped to reach the church before dark and ask the preacher for shelter. Now she would not make it. The stranger walked toward her horse and began removing the traces. "What are you doing?" "Freeing your horse before this wagon pulls her into the ditch." "Leave her alone." He ignored her. Clara grabbed his arm. The man froze. His eyes moved to her hand. Clara released him at once. "I said leave her alone." "And I said the wagon is finished." "You do not own it." "No," he replied, "but I know when wood is broken." Clara looked at the wagon, and her anger began to fall apart. Her husband, Thomas, had built that wagon with his own hands. He had painted their initials beneath the driver's seat before their wedding. They had crossed Kansas in it. They had slept beneath it during storms. They had planned to carry their first child home in it. Now Thomas was dead. The farm was gone. And the wagon was breaking apart in the mud. Clara covered her mouth, but a sob escaped. The stranger stopped working. He watched her silently. Clara hated him for seeing her cry. She turned away. "I can manage," she said. The words sounded weak. The man removed his hat. Rain darkened his hair. "What is your name?" She did not answer. He waited. "Clara Whitfield." "I am Wade Mercer." She had heard the name before. Everyone near Red Pine knew about Wade Mercer. He owned the Black Creek Ranch north of town. People said he had fought in the war, buried 2 brothers, and once dragged a wounded ranch hand 5 miles through the snow. They also said he rarely spoke, never smiled, and had thrown a man through the window of the Silver Bell Saloon. Clara stepped farther away. Wade noticed her fear again. "You have heard stories," he said. "A few. Most are wrong." "Which ones?" "The ones that say I enjoy throwing men through windows." Clara stared at him. He almost smiled. "Sometimes the door is closer." Despite herself, Clara let out a small laugh. It surprised them both. Wade turned back to the horse. "Where are you headed?" "Red Pine." "Why?" "I have business there." "What business?" Clara lifted her chin. "You ask too many questions. And you answer too few. That is because my life is not yours to command." Wade pulled the last strap loose and led Daisy away from the broken wagon. "You are right." Clara blinked. She had expected an argument. Wade tied her horse behind his wagon, then climbed onto the driver's seat. Clara remained beside the road. He looked down at her. "What are you doing?" "Waiting for you to leave." "I am not leaving you." "I am not going with you." Rain ran down Wade's face. His jaw hardened. "Get in my wagon." Clara stared at him. That sounded like an order. It was. "You cannot order me around." "I can when you are standing in the mud, carrying a child with darkness coming and wolves in these hills." "I would rather walk." "You will not make it 2 miles." "I said I can manage." Wade climbed down again. He walked toward her slowly, his patience clearly gone. Clara held her ground, though her heart beat faster with every step he took. He stopped only a few feet away. "You are shaking," he said. "I am cold." "You are exhausted." "I am fine." "You are not fine." His voice grew softer, but that only made it harder to resist. Clara looked away. Wade followed her gaze toward the broken wagon. "You can come back for your things tomorrow." "What if someone steals them?" "I will send men from my ranch." "Why would you do that?" "Because leaving you here would be wrong." Clara studied his face. There was no smile, no gentle promise, no soft kindness. But there was honesty. She had trusted smiling men before. One had taken her husband's final payment and disappeared. Another had offered her work, then tried to force his way into her room. Perhaps a hard face was safer than a kind one. A sharp pain tightened across Clara's stomach. She gasped. Wade caught her before she fell. His hands were strong but careful. "Is it the baby?" "I do not know." "How far along are you?" "Nearly 8 months." Wade's expression changed at once. "We are not going to Red Pine." Clara pulled away from him. "Yes, we are." "No. The church will help me." "The church doors are locked at night, and the preacher left town yesterday." "How do you know?" "Because he asked me to repair his roof before he left." Clara felt the last of her hope disappear. "Then take me to the boarding house." "You have money." Her silence answered him. Wade looked toward the hills again. "My ranch is 4 miles north." "No. There are warm rooms, food, and a woman named Mrs. Bell who has delivered more babies than any doctor in this county." "I do not know you." You know enough. I know people are afraid of you. Wade's eyes darkened. People are afraid of what they do not understand. Clara held her belly as another pain moved through her back. Wade saw it. This time he did not ask permission. He lifted her into his arms. Clara grabbed his coat. Put me down. When you are inside the wagon. I said put me down. You can argue after you are warm. He carried her through the mud and placed her beneath the canvas cover of his wagon. Thick blankets were stacked against one side. A wooden box of supplies sat near the front. Wade wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Then he climbed onto the seat and took the reins. Clara looked back at her broken wagon, disappearing in the rain. My husband built that, she whispered. Wade glanced over his shoulder. We will bring it home. Home? To Black Creek. That is not my home. Wade faced the road again. No, he said quietly, not yet. The wagon began moving north. Clara sat beneath the blanket, confused by his words and frightened by the road ahead. She did not know that someone else had been watching from the trees. A man in a gray coat waited until Wade's wagon disappeared around the bend. Then he stepped onto the road and walked toward Clara's broken wagon. He searched beneath the seat until he found Thomas Whitfield's carved initials. The man smiled. So the widow is alive, he said. He pulled a knife from his belt and cut the initials from the wood. Then he turned toward the north, toward Black Creek Ranch. The first thing Clara noticed about Black Creek Ranch was the silence. No dogs barked as the wagon rolled through the wooden gate. No ranch hands called out from the barn. Only the cold rain struck the roof of the large log house while the dark mountains stood around it like watchmen. Wade stopped the wagon near the porch and climbed down. Before Clara could move, the front door opened. A short woman with silver hair hurried outside carrying a lantern. Wade Mercer, what trouble have you brought home now? Her name is Clara Whitfield, Wade said. She is nearly 8 months pregnant, soaked through, and too stubborn to admit she needs help. Clara frowned. I can hear you. Good, the woman said. That means you are not dead yet. She placed the lantern on the porch and helped Wade guide Clara down from the wagon. I am Abigail Bell, she said. Everyone calls me Mrs. Bell. Come inside before that baby decides to arrive in the yard. The house was warmer than Clara expected. A fire burned in a wide stone fireplace. A pot of stew hung over the flames, filling the room with the smell of beef, potatoes, and onions. Clara had not eaten since morning. Her stomach tightened painfully. Mrs. Bell noticed. You sit by the fire, I will bring food. I do not want to be a burden. Then eat quickly and become less of one. Wade removed his wet coat and hat. Without them, he looked less frightening, though not gentle. His dark shirt stretched across broad shoulders, and another scar ran along his left forearm. Clara wondered how many battles the man had survived. Mrs. Bell placed a bowl in Clara's hands. Slowly, she warned, your body has been running on fear. Clara took one bite. Warmth spread through her chest. She tried to stop herself, but tears filled her eyes. Wade stood near the door watching her. Clara wiped her face. I am not crying. I did not say you were. You were looking at me. It is my house. Mrs. Bell pointed toward the hallway. Wade, go find dry clothes for her. I do not have women's clothes. Your sister left some things in the cedar chest. Wade's face became still. Clara noticed the change. Mrs. Bell noticed too, but did not take back her words. After a moment, Wade walked down the hallway. His sister, Clara asked quietly. Mrs. Bell stirred the fire. Her name was Emily. She died 6 years ago. I am sorry. So is he. Wade returned carrying a folded blue dress and a white sleeping gown. He placed them on the table without looking at Clara. The bedroom upstairs is ready, Mrs. Bell said. You can wash and change there. Clara looked toward the stairs. I should leave in the morning. Wade leaned against the wall. Where will you go? Red Pine. To do what? Clara looked down at her bowl. To find work. You are about to have a baby. I know that. No one will hire you. I can sew, I can cook, I can keep accounts. You can barely stand. Clara set the bowl down harder than she meant to. I do not need you to explain how poor I am. Wade's face tightened. That is not what I said. It is what you meant. No, what I meant is that you need time. Time costs money. Not here. Clara stared at him. What do you want from me? The room became quiet. Mrs. Bell stopped moving. Wade stood straighter. Nothing. No man gives a strange woman food, shelter, and clothing for nothing. Some men do. I have not met them. Wade's eyes grew cold. You have now. Clara wished she could believe him, but fear had become part of her. It spoke louder than kindness. It reminded her that every gift came with a price. She rose from the chair. I am tired. Mrs. Bell led her upstairs. The bedroom was small but clean. A white quilt covered the bed. A wooden cradle stood near the window. Clara stopped when she saw it. Mrs. Bell followed her gaze. That belonged to Emily. Did she have a child? No. Mrs. Bell's voice softened. She was expecting one when she died. Clara turned slowly. What happened? A man named Silas Crowe happened. The name meant nothing to Clara, but the bitterness in Mrs. Bell's voice made her uneasy. Silas owned land south of here, Mrs. Bell continued. He wanted Black Creek too. Emily was engaged to him before Wade learned what kind of man he was. What kind was he? The kind who smiles before he hurts you. Clara thought of the man who had cheated her after Thomas died. What did Wade do? He tried to stop the wedding. Emily refused to listen. She believed Silas loved her. Mrs. Bell looked toward the window. 3 weeks later, Wade found her wagon at the bottom of Miller Ridge. Silas claimed it was an accident. And Wade did not believe him. No one who saw her bruises believed him. Clara felt cold despite the warm room. Was Silas arrested? He disappeared before the sheriff could question him. Mrs. Bell placed a hand on the cradle. Wade has blamed himself ever since. Clara thought of his hard face when he had carried Emily's clothes downstairs. He keeps this room ready. Yes. For whom? Mrs. Bell looked at Clara. Perhaps he never knew until tonight. Before Clara could answer, a sharp pain seized her lower back. She grabbed the bedpost. Mrs. Bell moved quickly. Breathe. It is not the baby. Let me decide that. The pain passed after several seconds. Mrs. Bell helped Clara sit on the bed and placed a hand against her stomach. The child is active, but you are not in labor. You need rest. Clara looked at the cradle again. My husband was killed 2 months ago. Mrs. Bell's hand stopped. Killed? Everyone says it was an accident. But you do not believe them. Clara shook her head. Thomas worked at a freight office in Fort Grayson. A week before he died, he told me he had found something dangerous in the company books. He said men were stealing land from widows and farmers. Did he name anyone? No, he said he would tell the sheriff when he had proof. What happened next? They found him beside the river. His horse was gone. His money was gone. The sheriff said robbers killed him. Clara pressed both hands over her belly. But Thomas never carried money on that road. Mrs. Bell's eyes sharpened. Did he leave you anything? A small notebook. I hid it inside the wagon. Clara froze. Her wagon was still on the road. Wade had promised to send men for it in the morning. But someone else could find it first. Downstairs, the front door opened. Clara heard boots crossing the floor. Then a man's voice said, "Boss, there is someone near the east fence." Wade answered, "Who?" Could not see his face. Gray coat, he was watching the house. Clara's blood went cold. She hurried from the bedroom despite Mrs. Bell's protests. Wade stood near the fireplace loading a rifle. 2 ranch hands waited by the door. Clara gripped the stair rail. "The notebook." Wade looked up. "What notebook?" Thomas left records, names and payments, proof that someone was stealing land. "Where is it?" "In my wagon beneath the driver's seat." Wade's jaw tightened. "Who knows about it?" "No one." "Someone does." He pulled on his coat. "I am going back for the wagon." "I am coming." "No. It belongs to me." "You are staying here." Clara descended the last step. "You do not command me." Wade crossed the room until he stood before her. "I am not arguing this time. A man is watching the house. Someone may already be searching your wagon and you can barely walk. I need that book. I will bring it. What if you do not return?" Something passed through Wade's eyes. "Then Caleb will take you to Sheriff Dalton before sunrise." Clara wanted to protest, but Wade turned toward the door. Mrs. Bell handed him a lantern. "Do not go alone. I will take Caleb." Wade stepped onto the porch. Clara followed him. The rain had stopped, but the night was black and cold. "Wade." He looked back. It was the first time she had spoken his name. "Thomas died because of that notebook," she said. "Do not die for it too." Wade studied her face. "I am harder to kill than your husband was." The words sounded cruel, but his voice was gentle. Then he rode into the darkness with Caleb beside him. Clara stood on the porch until the sound of hoofbeats disappeared. Mrs. Bell wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "You care whether he comes back." "I barely know him." "That has never stopped the heart from deciding." Clara turned away. "He is helping me, that is all." Mrs. Bell did not answer. 2 hours passed. Then 3. No one spoke. Clara sat near the window, watching the road. Shortly after midnight, a horse appeared through the trees. Only one horse. Clara rose so quickly that the chair fell behind her. Caleb rode into the yard alone. Blood covered one side of his face. Wade was not with him. The front door flew open before Caleb reached the porch. "What happened?" Clara asked. Caleb nearly fell from the saddle. Mrs. Bell and another ranch hand caught him. "We found the wagon," he gasped. "Someone burned it." Clara's knees weakened. "The notebook." "Wade found it before the fire took everything." "Where is he?" Caleb looked at her. His face held fear. "A man shot my horse. Wade told me to ride back and warn you." "Warn us about what?" Caleb pulled a piece of carved wood from his coat. It was part of Clara's wagon seat. Thomas's initials had been cut away. In their place, someone had carved a message. "The widow has what belongs to me." Below the words was a single name. Silas Crowe. Mrs. Bell made a broken sound. Clara stared at the message. "The man who killed Emily," she whispered. Caleb nodded. "And Wade went after him alone." A gunshot cracked from the barn. Everyone froze. Then the ranch house window shattered. Clara dropped to the floor as a bullet struck the wall above her head. Outside, a man shouted through the darkness. "Send out the widow and Mercer lives. Send out the widow and Mercer lives." Clara pressed one hand against the floor and the other over her belly. Broken glass glittered beside her. Mrs. Bell crouched near the fireplace while Caleb struggled to stand. Another shot struck the porch post. "Clara," Mrs. Bell whispered, "stay down." Outside, horses moved through the darkness. Clara could hear at least 3 men near the barn and another beside the front gate. "Where is Wade?" Clara shouted. A man laughed. Still breathing for now. Clara's heart pounded. She crawled toward the broken window and carefully looked through the lower corner. A lantern burned near the barn. Two men stood beside it with rifles. A third man held Wade on his knees in the mud. His hands were tied behind his back and blood ran from his temple. Silas Crowe stood beside him. He wore a gray coat. Even from a distance, Clara could see his smile. Silas grabbed Wade by the hair and lifted his face. "You have 1 minute, Mrs. Whitfield." Wade looked toward the house. "Do not come out," he shouted. Silas struck him across the mouth. Clara flinched. "I need the notebook," Silas called. "Bring it to me and perhaps I will let Mercer live." "You will kill us both," Clara answered. Silas laughed again. "You are smarter than your husband." Wade pulled against the ropes. "You murdered Thomas." "I corrected a problem." Clara felt anger rise through her fear. Thomas had trusted the law. He had believed proof would protect innocent people. Silas had killed him for that belief. Now he wanted Clara and her child dead too. Mrs. Bell crawled beside her. "There is a rifle in the pantry." "I cannot shoot well." "You do not need to shoot well. You need to stay alive." Caleb reached the wall and pushed himself upright. "There is another way out through the root cellar," he whispered. "A tunnel leads near the smokehouse." Clara looked at Wade again. Silas held a pistol against his head. "I will go through the cellar," Clara said. "You keep their eyes on the house." Mrs. Bell grabbed her arm. "You are not giving yourself to them." "I am not giving myself to anyone." Clara's voice became steady. "I am bringing Wade home." Mrs. Bell stared at her, then nodded. Caleb opened the pantry and pulled out an old rifle. He handed it to Clara with 3 bullets. "Take the path behind the smokehouse," he said. "It leads to the horse corral." Clara moved toward the cellar door. Before she climbed down, Mrs. Bell took her face between both hands. "You come back with him." Clara nodded. The tunnel was narrow, cold, and filled with dirt. Clara moved slowly, holding the rifle in one hand while protecting her belly with the other. Pain tightened across her back again. She stopped and breathed until it passed. "Not yet," she whispered to the baby. "Please wait for your father to come home." The words surprised her. Wade was not the baby's father. But somewhere between the broken wagon and the warm room upstairs, Clara had begun to imagine him staying. She pushed forward. The tunnel ended beneath a wooden cover near the smokehouse. Clara lifted it carefully and climbed out. No one saw her. The attackers were watching the ranch house. Silas stood over Wade, counting loudly. 10. Clara moved behind the corral fence. 9. She raised the rifle. 8. Her hands shook. Wade had told her he would bring the wagon home. He had gone into the darkness for her husband's notebook. He had risked his life without asking for payment. 7. Clara aimed at the lantern beside the barn. 6. She pulled the trigger. The lantern exploded. Darkness swallowed the yard. Wade threw himself sideways as gunfire erupted from the ranch house. Caleb and the ranch hands fired through the broken windows. Clara ran toward the barn. Silas shouted orders, but his men could no longer see one another. One fired toward the house. Another ran for the horses. Clara reached Wade and dropped beside him. "You came out," he growled. "Be angry later." She pulled a knife from his belt and cut the rope around his wrists. Silas appeared from the darkness. He raised his pistol. Wade turned and pushed Clara behind him. The gun fired. Wade jerked backward. Clara screamed. He fell against her, one hand gripping his shoulder. Silas stepped closer. "You should have stayed on your ranch, Mercer." Wade looked at the blood running between his fingers. "You should have stayed dead." Silas aimed again. Before he could fire, Clara swung the rifle against his arm. The pistol flew into the mud. Silas struck her across the face. Clara fell beside the fence. Wade charged him. The two men crashed into the mud, fighting with fists and elbows. Silas reached for a knife. Wade caught his wrist, but his wounded shoulder weakened him. Silas drove the knife closer to Wade's throat. Clara saw the pistol near her hand. She picked it up. Silas. He looked toward her. Clara aimed at his chest. Move away from him. Silas smiled. You do not have the courage. Clara pulled back the hammer. You killed my husband. He was weak. You killed Emily. She should have obeyed me. Wade's face changed. Silas saw it too late. Wade twisted the knife from his hand and struck him hard across the jaw. Silas fell backward. Clara kept the pistol aimed at him. Silas slowly raised his hands. You will not shoot me. No, Clara said, I will not. Hoofbeats thundered beyond the gate. Lanterns appeared along the road. Sheriff Dalton rode into the yard with 6 armed men behind him. Caleb had sent a ranch hand through the northern trail before the attack began. Silas looked toward the sheriff, then toward the trees. He tried to run. Wade caught him by the coat and pulled him to the ground. You are staying, Wade said. This time you face what you did. The sheriff placed Silas in chains. 2 of his men surrendered. Another had been wounded. The last escaped into the hills but was captured before sunrise. When the yard finally became quiet, Clara turned to Wade. His shirt was dark with blood. You are hurt. It passed through the shoulder. You do not know that. I can still move my hand. That does not mean you are fine. Wade looked at her swollen cheek and muddy dress. You crossed a tunnel in your condition. You were tied in the yard. I told you to stay inside. And I told you that you do not command me. For the first time, Wade smiled fully. Then his face went pale. He collapsed. Clara caught his head before it struck the ground. Wade. His eyes closed. Wade, do not you dare leave me. Mrs. Bell hurried across the yard. Bring him inside. They carried Wade to the downstairs bedroom. Sheriff Dalton sent for the doctor while Mrs. Bell cut away the bloody shirt. The bullet had passed through the upper shoulder. It had missed the bone and the large blood vessels, but Wade had lost too much blood. For 2 days, fever held him. Clara refused to leave his side. She changed the cloth on his forehead. She helped Mrs. Bell clean the wound. She spoke to him even when he could not answer. On the second night, Wade opened his eyes. Clara was asleep in the chair beside him, one hand resting near his. He moved his fingers. She woke at once. Wade. You look terrible, he whispered. Clara began to cry. You were nearly killed, and that is what you say. It seemed important. She laughed through her tears. Wade looked toward her belly. The baby. Safe. And you. Safe. His hand closed around hers. Silas. In jail, the notebook gave Sheriff Dalton every name, payment, and stolen property record. Silas will face trial for Thomas, Emily, and 6 other deaths. Wade closed his eyes briefly. It is over. Yes. Clara looked at their joined hands. When you told me to get in your wagon, I thought you were the rudest man I had ever met. I was trying to help. You growled at me. You were standing under a broken wagon. You still growled. Wade's thumb moved across her fingers. Are you planning to leave when I recover? Clara looked toward the cradle near the window. I have nowhere to go. That is not what I asked. She met his eyes. No, I am not planning to leave. Wade breathed slowly. Good. Is that another order? No. His voice softened. It is hope. 3 weeks later, Clara's baby came during the first snow of winter. Wade sat outside the bedroom door for 6 hours, while Mrs. Bell helped Clara through the pain. When a baby cried at last, Wade stood so quickly that his chair fell backward. Mrs. Bell opened the door. "You may come in." Clara lay beneath the blankets, tired but smiling. A small baby girl rested against her chest. Wade approached slowly. "She is beautiful," he whispered. Clara looked at him. "Would you like to hold her?" His large hands trembled as Clara placed the child in his arms. The baby opened her eyes and wrapped tiny fingers around one of his. Wade stared down at her. "What is her name?" "Emily Thomas Whitfield." Wade looked at Clara. "For your sister and my husband." His eyes filled with tears. "Clara, they both brought us here in different ways." Wade sat beside the bed. "I cannot replace Thomas. I would never ask you to. And I do not know how to be a father. You already protected her before she was born." Clara reached for his hand. "That is a good beginning." Wade looked at her for a long time. "I love you." The words were quiet and rough, but Clara heard everything behind them. She smiled. "I love you too." They married in spring beneath the cottonwood trees at Black Creek Ranch. Sheriff Dalton stood beside Wade. Mrs. Bell held baby Emily. The ranch hands filled the yard, and even the preacher returned early to perform the ceremony. Clara wore the blue dress that had belonged to Wade's sister. Wade wore a clean black coat and looked more nervous than he had while facing Silas Crowe. When the preacher asked Clara if she accepted Wade as her husband, she smiled at him. "I do." Wade's answer came without hesitation. "I do." Years later, people still told the story of the pregnant widow whose wagon broke outside Red Pine. Some said Wade Mercer saved her life. Others said Clara Whitfield saved his. Both were true. The broken wagon was repaired and placed beside the Black Creek barn. Wade refused to throw it away. Beneath the driver's seat, Thomas's old initials remained. Beside them, Wade carved two more names: Clara and Emily. Every evening, Clara stood on the porch with Wade while their daughter played in the yard. The mountains turned gold beneath the setting sun, and the ranch filled with the sounds of horses, laughter, and life. Clara had once believed her broken wagon was the end of everything. Instead, it carried her to the beginning of a new home.